Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be repotting these pomelo seedlings. I germinated these seedlings in December of 2019, so they're going into their fourth growing season, and I've never root pruned them. This is the pot that the seedlings germinated in. So let's get them out of the pot and see what the root systems look like. Here's a look at the trees. So I've let them grow, very tall many times, prune them back, let them grow again and prune them back. And they're starting to get a bit of a woody trunk on them. So yeah, I was quite surprised that I had never repotted these. So today is the day. These trees have been chilling in the basement over the winter, so they're not looking really good. But once they get warmed up, they'll start growing with a lot of vigor. So I need to get them out of the pot. And this pot has a bit of a lip on it, so I don't know how hard that'll be. I'll strip away the moss first. A nice layer of moss, that's for sure. Underneath I can see the soil is quite dry. I didn't water them last time because I knew I would be repotting them. And it's easier to repot trees when the soil's a bit dry. It comes away from the roots a lot easier. But you don't want to dry them out to the point where it affects the health of the trees. So generally on seedlings like this, I like to, repot them more frequently. But I think I just never got around to these trees. So I'll expect kind of probably some wild root systems here. Probably very one-sided. And I think I'll just be putting them back in the same pot. This pot's plenty big enough for these trees. There I go. Look at all those roots. Wow. They'll all be intertwined. But I think, it's not so packed with roots that it'll be difficult to separate the trees. So I'll begin combing out the root system. And maybe I'll just give it a water first. They're quite dry. I don't want all those roots drying out. Especially here in the sunlight. And I'm not complaining about the sunshine, that's for sure. So we've got one more cold night coming up. Minus 11 degrees Celsius, or I think that's, what is that in Fahrenheit? 12 or something. I think it's 12 degrees Fahrenheit. So really, really cool. Now hopefully that's the last really cold spell we'll get. But you never know. The weather this time of year is always unpredictable. It can go warm, it can go cold. So you've just got to protect your trees. On the cold nights, bring them back into the house or the basement, the garage, and then when it warms up, bring them back outside. Yeah, it can be a labor-intensive time of year where you're always moving trees around. Young and our KW club had a fairly old pomelo that looked really good. And that kind of inspired me to grow a pomelo as a bonsai. Now, I don't know if I can separate these trees yet. Probably not. They're quite entwined. All these roots on the bottom here. Wow. Yeah. Just trying to loosen them up a bit. It's not going to be easy. Yeah, so your citrus trees, if you want them to fruit and flower, you need to give them a cool winter. Keep them above freezing for sure, but not much above freezing. And they'll go dormant, and then when spring comes around, they should grow with vigor and they should flower and possibly get fruit. And there's nothing better than the smell of citrus flowers. Now these trees are probably too young to flower. Generally it takes 5 to 10 years on most flowering trees before they get mature enough to get flower buds. In the ground, it might be closer to the 5-year mark, but in a pot I would think it's going to be closer to 10, maybe even 15 years before they get enough vigor to flower. And it depends on what size pot you have them in. If you're just growing them wild in big pots, well, maybe they'll flower sooner than that. So I'm going to try and untangle these roots. They're very entwined. I think it'll just take more combing. So I'll work away at it, getting these trees separated. And we'll come back and have a look at the roots. I think it'll just be a matter of me just carefully combing out the soil and then untangling the root systems. And I'm sure there's a drainage screen on the bottom of the pot here somewhere amongst all these roots. I've got most of the soil removed from the roots, and you can see the drainage screen in here, and there's a lot of thick roots that have grown through the drainage screen. And it's kind of locking all the trees together. So I'm going to have to come in and do a little root pruning to get that drainage screen out of there. So I will do that. I'll cut away some of these roots that are growing through the drainage screen. There's some very thick roots that have grown through it. You can see them in here. Yeah, they're just holding all these trees together. Wow, some thick roots at the bottom. This will hopefully allow me to get the trees separated. I'm sure it's going to help. I almost have the drainage screen out now. Still a few roots holding it in. Thick one there. Wow, that's a thick root. Yeah, so ideally, these seedlings, I would do the first repotting in the second year, and then repot them every 2 years probably is quite good. So there, I've got the drainage screen out now. I think the trees will separate. Oh, I took off a lot on that one. Oh dear. That was an accident. This one too. Oh my goodness. I guess they just grew straight down into the drainage screen. Oh well. Here's one that has a good root system. Yeah, that's one of the dangers of just cutting blindly, is you can do something like that. However, like I said, these should have been repotted long ago. And I'm sure those ones with just a few roots will still live. They've got a lot of energy stored in them. Yeah, so there was a couple there that I did a severe root pruning on. So I will clean up. Yeah, there's the two that I snipped off, those thick roots from the drainage screen, and I basically took all the roots off the trees. But I'll still plant them. I think they'll root and grow. A lot of citrus grow from cuttings too, so it's quite easy, you know, lemon trees and orange trees to grow them from cuttings. So, all right, I'll get cleaned up and we'll come back for the root pruning. Okay, it's time to begin the root pruning. So I'll start with this one. It has a very fluffy root system. So you can see the tap root grew down, hit the bottom of the pot or the drainage screen, and then went horizontal. So I'm going to prune it off where it goes down, or where it goes horizontal, I mean. Removing a lot of the roots. I'll give a profile prune, getting rid of these really long ones. And you can see the roots aren't active yet, they're dormant. And then I've got to come in here. So I've got a nice radial root base developing here. So I think I can prune off this taproot a little shorter, getting rid of those bottom roots. And then I'll want to sort out these roots. So any growing up I'll get rid of. Any that have three growing from one spot I'll get rid of. Here's one growing upwards. Shorten this one. This one's going sideways. Sideways, it's not flowing out. Upwards. I'll trim these roots on the bottom back. So getting down there. This root kind of comes out of the soil. It's not too bad. I'll just prune back some of these subdivisions. Yeah, I think that's looking good. That's a good radial root base underway. So that's ready for planting that tree. I'll put it over here in the water. Get out the next root system. So this root system, again, you can see the taproot went down, hit the bottom of the pot, and went horizontal. So I'll prune off that horizontal part. I'll do a profile prune, get these roots a little more compact. There's one growing down here. I can prune back shorter. And then I've got a good radial root system developing kind of at this level, and these two roots are too high, so I'll get rid of those. And then I'll just do a little cleanup work on the root system again. Kind of keeping them under control. And that one's ready for planting. That's not too bad a root system either. Next, I have the one that I severely pruned that taproot off, and I've just got two little roots left, so I think I'll just trim them back a bit, and that one can be planted like that, and hopefully I'll develop more roots around this cut point. I guess there's just one root on it. This one is part of that same root. I better prune that off. It's sticking straight up. Yeah, so one root on that. Oh my goodness. The next one is a similar one. It's a little better. I'll just prune off some of these roots, and I think I better plant it like that. Actually, I am going to take this one root off the bottom. Hopefully getting a radial root system developing. The next one, well, there's my taproot. It's quite shallow, this one. And again, I will do a severe prune here, cutting it off. There's a lot of the roots gone. Trim back these long ones. And look and see what's left. This one's going a funny direction. That one too. These are too long. One sticking up there, one sticking up here. Here. Take that one back a bit more. And I think that's it for that one. The next one, you can see I've done one cut where I separated from the drainage screen. I'll just clean that up a bit. Prune back these long ones. Like that. Any roots sticking up I'll get rid of. Shorten this one a bit. Yeah, pretty meager root systems, but I think it's enough. The tree will live and grow, especially after being dormant for the winter. They'll have lots of energy stored in them. I've got 2 root systems left to prune up. So here's one. I'm going to prune off the taproot here. Profile prune. Prune off any sticking up. And I think that's good. One more tree. Wow, this one's got quite a root system. So, where's the taproot end? Here it is here. It curls around. So I will take it off right here. Like that. Get rid of that tangle of roots. And profile prune. And then I need to sort out what's left. Here's one sticking up. There's a crow going by. This one's kind of off radial. Prune it back hard. I could probably shorten this one some more too. Back to here. And I think that had better be it. So that is all the trees root pruned. Quite a severe operation. My next step will be to sort the trees out from the thickest trunk down to the skinniest trunk. So when I plant them in a forest, the larger trees will be out front, the smaller trees will be behind, and that'll create a sense of perspective. So here I go. Okay, so I'm going to start laying out the trees. Smallest over this side. And there's not a great difference in thicknesses. They're all, fairly close to each other. But, there is some genetic variation. And that, variation will continue as the trees mature. So your thickest trees will always remain the thickest, and your smaller trees will always remain a little smaller. It's a tough call here. I think like this. So yeah, you can see there's not a big difference in size of trunks, but there's some. So that's how I'll plant them, these larger trees out front and the smaller ones behind. And I'll also plant the trees in the front a little more sparsely, and as you go back in the planting, the density of trees will increase, and that'll help create that forced perspective. Now I will prune the top of the trees also today, taking quite a bit off, kind of reducing the demand on the root system. So again, I'll prune them, from tallest down to the smallest. So here I go. I'll use the ratcheting pruners and just make sort of a single cut on each tree. So my tallest tree will be to here. Taking the top off, and then they'll get smaller as they go down in diameter. And when I say smaller, I mean smaller. Like that. Wow. Yeah, so that's what I'm left with. Largest to smallest, tallest to shortest. So I'm ready to plant the trees now. I've got my drainage screens in the pot, so I'll add a base layer of soil. And you should always wear a dust mask when you're doing this, because the soil can be quite dusty and it's not good for your lungs. So I think that's a good level for my soil. I'll plant the trees on top of that. And I'm going to pick this as the front of the pot. The drainage screens were like this position. You could have it either, the flat part at the front, but I'm going to make the corner the front. So here I go planting the trees. I'll get some soil. So I'll put my largest tree up front, offset a bit in the pot, like that. The second tree with one root can go back just a little here. Stay. Number 3 back here. And I would not try this severe root pruning if you have citrus trees until you see if this planting survives, if these trees survive. This is a bit experimental. I've taken trees back this far in the past and they have survived, but this is pretty severe. And, aftercare will be critical. Keeping them warm and moist. Okay, let me just come out front and see how that arrangement looks. Here is a look at the trees in the pot. I think this one is a little too in line with the one in front of it. So I'll move it out a bit. The rest aren't too bad. I could maybe move this one over a bit. I'll make sure they're vertical before I fill the soil in. How is that looking? Well, I think that's quite acceptable. Yeah, I'll top up the soil and get the trees watered. I think that'll do. Okay, here I go with the water. I'll rotate the forest around in the pot so you can see it from all angles. So here's the front. Coming around to the right hand side, the back, the left hand side, and back to the front. Today I took these pomelo seedlings down to, I think, the absolute limit in both root pruning and top pruning. So we'll see if the trees survive. I'll keep you updated on their progress. Bonsai is sometimes about finding the limits of your tree, pruning them back, root pruning to the limit, doing as much work as you can with each repotting and each pruning. So we'll see if I exceeded the limits on these trees or not in the future. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.